Welcome to Battletested with Tanya Acker. When you are going to battle of just about any kind, one of the first things that you're going to want to make sure of is that the person who's deciding your fight is fair and impartial and is going to give your argument a fair shake. And my next guest has a reputation far and wide for doing precisely that. You know her from her over 2 decades on the People's Court. She's now the host of Justice for the People with Judge Milian. She is, of course, the great Judge Milian. And while we do have some fun talking about TV court, we talk about some other things too. And hers is a story that really points out the intersection between some of the larger national battles that we're having and our personal lived stories. She talks about her family's path here from Cuba. And we also talk about the fight for justice and for facts more broadly. And I'm also going to tell you this, whatever you're going through, whatever kind of battle you may be in, or one that you're seeing or consumed by, you've got to make sure that you have people in your life who have got integrity, who you look up to, who bring value to your life, and who, most importantly, make you laugh. I'm certainly lucky enough to have that with Judge Milian, and here you are, too. Welcome to our party. Here I am with Judge Marilyn Milian. Thank you for being here on Battletested. Thank you, Marilyn, for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I'm also going to brag a little bit because as an icon, you are regularly asked to be on podcasts, but I am your first. I asked and she said yes. She said yes.
I can't say no to you. You know that I cannot say no to you.
So I have to tell the story about how we met, which is it's like wild and random. My husband and I, it's so random. My husband and I are on vacation, everybody, and we are at this really fun ranch in Montana where you get to do fun ranchy things. And we go whitewater rafting with another family, and the family's awesome. And the wife, mother, woman of the household says, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm a lawyer." And my husband's like, "She's not just a lawyer, she's a TV judge." And
that's usually how my husband supplements also.
This incredible person, our mutual friend, says, "My best friend is a TV judge." And she was like, "My best friend is a TV judge." And she was like, "Marilyn Milian?" I'm like, "I don't know her, but I know her." And we
had just been on vacation with that couple. Then they went home for a week and then ended up on vacation with you.
With us. And so then cut to the next Emmy Awards. I go up, we meet each other, we FaceTime Geisha. And I have to say, and I think people should really know this because you have a lot of fans, you have a lot of people who look up to you. They love what you do in the courtroom. But you are a solid citizen. You are a girl's girl. You are a sister's sister. And you are warm and fun. And I just have to say, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you and being able to call you a friend. You provided.
Thank you. I feel very much the same. It's kind of a solitary job. So when you meet somebody who does the same thing you do, and there's only a few of us, I feel like, let's have a play date,
Exactly. We've had some play dates, but our play dates are not for public consumption. Like this. I want to start just a little bit talking about your background and your history, because I think so much of your life experience and your family experience is really instructive and says a lot about who we are as a nation and what we need to be. Even if we don't always live up to it, there are people who really embody I think, what the American dream is. So let's start with your parents. Your father came here as a Cuban immigrant with no money, nothing.
No money. And yeah, a lot of Cuban immigrants who came in the early 60s were actually displaced. Their assets were taken, their houses were taken. and they came with no money. My father started with no money and then came to America a few years before the revolution. And he literally he didn't speak a lick of English. He walked around New York City, and if he saw a window that said help wanted, he would pick up the sign, because he knew what that meant, and point to the sign and point to himself. And he started washing dishes and then working as a waiter. Then he saved money. He opened up a business. At the end, he taught himself how to build buildings and built apartment buildings. But he literally had a 4th grade education. That's what he came here with. So for him, education for his children was happening. That was 13th grade, you know.
What was his story in Cuba?
Most of my peers, I grew up in Miami, where it's almost predominantly Cuban American. And most of my peers were people who had something and it was taken away from them. So now they had nothing. So they came to America. My father had nothing to begin with and came before Castro. So he was just looking for an opportunity in America. And my mother coincidentally also came before Castro, and they happened to meet in New York, and, you know, the rest was history. But most of us, and that would be me included, feel that what has happened in Cuba is not a good thing, because the promised equality just means everyone is hungry to some extent. And I know this because I have a lot of relatives who are still there. So I can tell you that most of the Cuban Americans, certainly the ones in Miami, are hopeful that there will be some kind of personal liberties restored to the island without the U.S. taking over. I guess that's it in a nutshell.
When he came here, was he documented? Was there a path to citizenship?
It was before the and in any event, when Castro took over, because the U.S. has always been anti-communist, Cubans have always had kind of a special place in the immigration, for better or for worse. You know, a lot of people thought it was unfair, but sort of as an in your eye to Castro, Cubans have always had a more graceful way to come in here. However, my father was even before that. He just, you know, he applied for a visa and came. You know, one of the things that you and I have talked about and that have me a little bit insane is everything that's happening now with the anti-Hispanic and anti-immigrant sentiment that has unveiled itself a great deal in our country. People think, oh, well, you know, it's just the criminals. That's just nonsense. What's going on right now is that 500,000 people who had permission to be here, they didn't jump any line. They were 100% legal. 500,000 people had their papers also pulled. And so magically, when they went to show up for their next hearing, their next meeting, they ended up being taken into custody. These are Cubans. I think it was Nicaraguans. It's Hondurans. It's numerous nationalities, mostly Hispanic, who then all of a sudden, 500,000 documented people who were here on parole, whose paroles got yanked. Yeah, we're pretty angry.
I'm glad you bring that up, because I think that there is a real conflation between saying, you know what, if you're not here in this country legally, you got to go home and follow the rules. Okay, so there's that, right? Let's just if you just stick with that and you look at what's happening to folks who have asylum applications pending and whose lawyers have to fight with ICE agents, folks who previously did have some documented status that was unilaterally revoked. And then even if you consider sort of the population of undocumented folks, I mean, I think, and, you know, I got to say, I think that the polling, such as it is, I don't trust a lot of polls, but I think that there is a real sense that, yes, you should come into this country in the ways that are appropriate and legal and the like. A lot of people didn't. And frankly, a lot of people benefit from that labor. But mask, I think there's a big jump from trying to get one's hands on that problem and then, or that issue, and then having masked men with no badges on the streets, just unilaterally, like, pulling people over and saying, your accent makes me suspicious. How do
Right.
you, both as the daughter of immigrants and as an officer of the court, how do you process these ICE interactions?
Well, let me say a few things. First of all, every country has the right to control their borders. I 100% not only believe that, I applaud it. That is something that you have to do because that's part of being a country. Okay. And all the other countries get to control their borders. So I do not have a problem with the concept of that. Of course, that's the law. My problem was with the 500,000 that I just told you about. And as you say, the methods that are being employed. I have 3 daughters who basically all day long are bombarded by videos of the kind of interactions that are happening. And it's unapologetic and it's kind of silly. The last video she showed me was an ICE agent telling a woman, well, since you're videoing me, you're now on a terrorist list, which of course is utter nonsense. She's not, but there shouldn't be that conversation. People should not start to fear every uniform that they see. It's not that I don't have sympathy. I have sympathy for everybody. I don't think as a nation, we're going to be able to keep our economy going if we just grab a big net and take out everybody who came in undocumented. But if that's what we want to do, fine. It's not what was campaigned on. What was campaigned on was criminals, but it's fine if that's what you're going to do. Just don't turn around and turn people who are legal, 500,000 people who are legal, into illegals because you just don't like immigrants.
You spent some time working at Harvard Law School where you were responsible for training the Guatemalan trial judiciary. This country, for a long time, certainly during most of my adulthood, really kind of set the standard for rule of law, the way that we saw the law and the way that we kind of applied rule of law really became an example for other countries. So
it was the gold standard.
It was the gold standard. Can you talk a little bit about how you advised the Guatemalans on their judiciary and their legal processes?
Back in the day, at the particular time, there was a great deal of corruption in Guatemala. And one of the things that they were very concerned about was that the entire legal system was in writing. There was no orality. So you couldn't air it out. You couldn't listen to it and hear if it was fair. You couldn't reach your own conclusion about whether it was fair. You would just see something in writing. And so no one trusted the judiciary. And they actually had, at the time, 3 tiers of judiciary. And the first tier is what you and I and Americans would consider the prosecutors. So at the time, I had been a prosecutor under Janet Reno when she was in Miami, and I took leave to go work for this project where we trained the Guatemalan first-tier judiciary, which really were the prosecutors, on orality, on how to make an opening statement, a closing statement, because they were going to change their entire system, and they did it for a few years. They changed it to an oral system to try to get some respect for the rule of law in the country so that people would trust that it wasn't being corrupted, that the rule of law was being applied equally to everybody and everybody could count on it being applied equally to everybody. Because that's the idea behind a rule of law. If it changes in who you enforce it against, and if it's different depending on who is in charge of the country, it's not a rule of law. The idea behind a rule of law is that it is the same, it is duly enacted, we can all count on it, and it is applied equally.
To everyone, regardless of whether or not you're my political friend or my political enemy. So we've never been perfect at it, but it has been the aspiration. Do you think we're falling short?
Well, I definitely think we're falling short. And I'm very depressed to open up the newspapers these days. Yeah, I think we're falling short.
You know, you're somewhat, you've had like a lot of bipartisan professional relationships. You worked with Janet Reno. You've been close to and worked with folks in the GOP. Have you found that this moment is testing personal relationships? Like, do you have people in your life who you're close to?
Yes, I do. I have 3 children on one side of the spectrum. I have a husband on the other side of the spectrum, and I am the constant referee. I am very much in the middle. I became an independent years ago. And I was a lifelong Republican. I became an independent. I have always been socially liberal, fiscally conservative. And then it just finally occurred to me that neither party speaks to me, and I hate them both equally. So, I just had to be independent, which means in my state, you don't really get to vote in a primary. So it's kind of a deficit. My husband is actually I don't know if you know this, he's a registered libertarian.
Oh.
And yeah.
I have some libertarian friends. I know I got some libertarians in my group.
Oh my God, we should get a play date together for them because it's real. And my children, of course, are the social justice warriors I hoped they would be. And so it makes for a very animated family dinner at any time that we are all together. And we try to listen to each other. What I think happens to people a lot more now than used to is that there's the civility of our discourse has gone straight into the garbage can. I mean, people just listen to their own echo chamber. It's hard to find a neutral source of news. And some people just choose to be uninformed rather than misinformed, because it used to be that you could put on the news and get the straight dope. And then it became, well, if I put on this station and then this station, I kind of get the straight dope. Now they're just covering two different stories. You have no idea what the straight dope is. So you have to constantly, to be an educated individual at this time, you have to be so tenacious about your research. Every time someone sends me an article, I say, did you read the article or did you just read the headline? Because I just wasted 10 minutes reading the article and the headline has absolutely nothing to do with the article. The headline was intended to boil your blood. And, so you have to be skeptical. You have to be a little more skeptical of every headline that you read and get to the bottom of stuff in order to have an informed opinion these days.
The rage bait is real. What we get in our social media feeds, like the difference is like wild. It is wild.
It's wild.
It's wild.
And unfortunately, most of my children, well, not all of my children, and they're all under 30, and I think that generation gets most of their news from their feed. And so it's just reinforcing the same ideas and constant rage bait. Constant. What can you tune into on TV or streaming services where you can get something that's in the middle? You really can't. It's so honestly, I criticize what they listen to as news, and then they criticize what we listen to as news, or I don't listen to that, but what we will pick and say it's just as biased and it's just as, crazy. And I don't know that they're wrong. I mean, honestly, sometimes I just don't know who to believe if I don't see it in a video.
It's an interesting segue. I wasn't going to go here just now, but it just lends itself to it. You're currently the spokesperson for the FBI's Safe Online Surfing campaign.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm not currently the spokesperson, but I was in the past, and it was insanity. We just did my role was to do a lot of public service speaking, but before I did that, I went to visit the FBI, and they asked me, do you have any idea how prevalent this is, online stalking of children? And I said, well, I think I do. They said, no, you don't. And they sat me down and they put in 2-year-olds still in diapers and some other, they asked me, they said, name something between an age between this and that. They just had me pick, 3 variables. Boom, 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 boom. You could just see everybody who was at the time surfing on the internet for that kind of porn. I'm
going to lose my lunch and want to
and it would just keep populating the longer you stayed with it. I said, I can't, you need to stop. I can't watch this anymore. I think that the internet has made people so, we no longer have empathy, like I would tell my kids, don't text, pick up the phone and call. And they say, Mom, no one does that. I go, yeah, what happens when you don't do that? If you and I are talking to each other, I see your eyes. And when I say something cruel, I see the effect I've had on you. And then I empathize and say, geez, Marilyn, tone it down, and then we understand each other. But what hiding behind social media and the internet does is it gives you anonymity to just be meaner. And I think we've seen that. And I'm happy to, my eldest child is 30, and she now has very little presence on social media because she is seeing the things I've been saying for 20 years. And she's like, no, I want to live real life,
It does seem like that there are more voices that are sort of stepping up to defend and protect young people in these online spaces, because you're 100% right. I mean, I had a state legislature, I think he's from West Virginia. And, this is not a political issue. This guy's son was catfished and killed himself because of a blackmailer. I mean, the things that are happening online are pretty egregious. It does seem like that there's more attention and energy being directed toward protecting them. And you certainly were one of those voices. But what's happening in real life? I mean, we can't leave this topic without talking about the Epstein files. I mean, what really I find egregious is that we have completely lost sight of, lost track of, don't care about those victims. And it's like, we're sort of trying to pick perpetrators based on, or I won't say I will say there are some folks who are sort of using it as an opportunity to go after their political enemies, whoever those enemies might be. We forgot about those girls. It's disgusting.
All those blocked out names need to be unblocked like yesterday. It's just nonsense. And people have had it's been many presidents who have had those files. I'm waiting to see when we stop the redaction and just put them out there for public consumption,
How do you redact the names and then of the people who were messing around with young girls and then leave open the names of the victims themselves? I mean, I cannot. This can't
go on. I feel like even I, who lose all hope and faith in human nature a lot, I really think that in the next few months, there's going to be a lot of unredacting. There has to be. Sometimes I'm watching little by little it all come out. And then I'm like I feel when I stream a series and I have to wait until next week. I'm like, how is this better than network television? It's not better. I don't want to wait till next week. I'm going to wait until the whole thing's over. And then when the whole thing's over, and then I'm going to look at everything. I can't take this dribs and drabs stuff.
So speaking of your husband, who is not on the spectrum, but on another part of the political spectrum.
Well, John. That's another show. That's a topic for another show.
Hi, John. Great guy. So you meet him, you're a lawyer, he's a lawyer, you all have a family, you both have big jobs and big lives. And I think that a lot of people, sometimes it's like, oh, you got to have work-life balance. When you have two people with big jobs and big careers, how did you balance that? How did that work with the two of you? And
it works really well for John. Here, you see those two chairs behind me? The two, those, okay. When we wake up in the morning, we get our coffee and we sit there and I drink a cup of coffee. How long should it take a person to drink a cup of coffee, Tanya? What, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? And then I peel into action. And one time, John just looked at me and said, in many ways, you and I are very different. I am like the gentle manatee, slowly moving from point to point, and you are like a shark who can't stop moving for fear of dying. I'll get there. Just let me, so we have different paces, which actually works well in the relationship. People always say, well, you shouldn't date another lawyer. I love that part. I mean, because we have always supported each other and gone to each other's trials. I was a state prosecutor. He was a federal prosecutor. And we both, we would ask each other questions and run things by each other. My eldest daughter's now a state prosecutor. So I always told people the way you can have it all. You just can't have it all at the very same moment. That's all. So when you're at work, be at work and have things organized in a way that I mean, unless there's an emergency, obviously, but when you're at work, you be at work. And when you're at home, be at home. And that's we were always pretty committed to that. When People's Court came knocking on my door, I told them I'm not moving from Miami. They go, well, what do you mean? I said, I don't know. I can make myself any clearer. I don't. Cubans don't leave Miami. We're not leaving. I have both sets of grandparents here. It's a lot of support with the family. I'm not doing it. So I was the first judge there that they would fly in to tape. And at the time, I would fly. I had little kids. In fact, I got pregnant on the first season. And yeah.
Surprise!
Stu Billett was not happy.
Well, that's a great segue because I want to talk about People's Court, because not only did they come knocking, they came knocking 16 times before you answered. But just to kind of swing it back to when you were a young one at Georgetown, from where you graduated summa cum laude. I'm sorry, I just like to give people their flowers when they need to get their flowers. So
I feel very flowered today. Like nobody tells me the things you're saying.
Yeah, well, girl, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Remember your flowers. So you're at Georgetown, like working hard, and you become obsessed with this show, The People's Court.
Yeah, that was the year I was in the dorms. That was the first year they had dorms for the law school. I was in the dorms and no one had a TV in their room. The TVs were in the quad. Like there was one massive TV in the quad. And it was when People's Court aired for the first time and everybody was knocking on everybody's door and, oh, you got to see this. This is great. This is hysterical. They all came out and we all watched it. And I often think like if, there had been a little angel tapping me on the shoulder saying, psst, guess what? This will happen to you in about 30 years, or whenever.
Harvey Levin calls you 16 times, and you actually replace the wonderful, lovely Jerry Scheinlin, who I know is married to a woman to whom I am indebted for very, very much. God bless you, Judy. So you replace Jerry, and you take that bench. Tell me about the difference for you from between adjudicating in real life and adjudicating on TV. Because when I got the job, I was a lawyer and Judy gave me great advice, which was you need to get acclimated to the bench. So I became a judge pro tem. For people who don't know, you can volunteer. If you're a lawyer, you can volunteer, and serve as a judge on certain types of cases. So I did that just so I could get used to it because the seat is
There's
very
a big
different.
Difference.
There's
a
big
very
difference between being an advocate and then sitting behind that bench. There's a big difference between doing anything in real life and then doing it on television. What were the big differences for you, and what was the hardest part for you, doing it on TV?
I always think back to this moment when this question is asked of me because I remember the day the show launched. It was March 12th of 2001. And I had a viewing party in my house for just my family. And, my brother, my parents, my cousins, just because I was really nervous. And when it launched, my brother looked at me and said, well, it's you. It's all you. It's just a lot more of you, is what he said. You know what? That is it. I mean, listen, because you know this game. You have to be, in order to succeed as a judge on television, you have to be educational and entertaining. If you're too educational and not entertaining, they're going to change the channel. And if you're too entertaining and you're not educational, then they're not going to respect you and they're also going to change the channel. So you have to find kind of the right balance. And that was all new to me because I would just rule and move on, before. And now everything has to marinate and take its time and go down, the primrose path of, while you're producing it in your mind, you're figuring out, okay, let the story develop this way. I know I've already read all this, but the viewer hasn't. So I have to let the story develop. And so really it was just that, but it's sort of bizarre how quickly I took to it. And you did too. I mean, I'm sure, because I remember in my first taping, I was speaking and I kind of jumbled the words and I just stopped. And then I said it over. I started my sentence over, and the producer came running out. David Scott, you've met David, right? He came running. I goes, "Why did you just do that?" I said, "Well, I figured an editor is going to have trouble taking that nonsense out unless I started over." He goes, "How did you know to do that?" I go, "I don't know. It sounds to me like the way you guys are doing it." I said, it's just, so it was very natural. But, people are relying on you to make the right ruling. So it's not all that different. It's just how you present yourself that is very different because everybody's watching, and so you need to tell the story slowly and in an entertaining fashion.
I remember very distinctly, like the first day we were taping. We're now on Tribunal Justice. New season starts on March 2nd. But started on Hot Bench. And I remember the first day, I was really nervous. So I had done a lot of TV before, but it was live. Like, I'd be called on some network.
That's so much worse.
I actually found it so much easier.
It's that's way harder.
God. I was like, this political issue, that legal issue, debate this one, that one, like that was easy. This was harder. And plus, remember, I've got 2 other people on the bench with me. And so that's a whole other dynamic. But I remember the day, like before we walked out, Judy was there and she was like, "Harry," I was like, "I'm really nervous. Like, I am super nervous." And she kind of said what you did. She's like, "You do live TV?" I'm like, "I'm really nervous." And she's like, "Just remember, this is not live. Like, if something, like if there's a big flub up, they cut it. Like if you misspeak, they cut it."
I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but I've ruled, walked into my chambers and said, "Everybody come back out again." And not necessarily reversed it, maybe reversed it, something, but I've said to myself, I need to explain this better, or I need to do this differently, or I have more questions. That's happened.
100%, because again, this is law. And like, on People's Court and on our show, these are real people, real cases. What the audience may not know is that you're not seeing certainly you are one person. I was up there with 3 people. Yeah. We could be up there for an hour and 20 minutes.
Right.
So that, you got to, like, for the audience's sake, you got to cut some of that down. You guys, trust me, listeners, viewers, you don't want to hear an hour and a half of us doing a dog bite case. You really don't. But you do have to the point that you made, like the point of the court show is not just to entertain, but it's also to give people some actual information. And if you don't feel like you're doing that right, you're kind of doing the viewers, the case, yourself a disservice. So that's absolutely
well, you won't last. You won't last. The 100%. Market will eat you up. As you know, there have been lots of judges who have come and gone. Some of them thought it was a comedy show. Some of them were too dry. They come and they go. And the ones that stay are the ones that can find that balance, which I've watched you for years, and you definitely strike that balance, but also you've got to do that with 2 other people, which I don't know that I could do it. That's like hats off to you that you're that collaborative and, that you're able to sustain that.
So you're my girl.
I've gotten so used to having the final word that I'd be like, "What? Wait, what?"
Do you ever look at like viewer comments, like on social?
I try not to, but sometimes they, at People's Court, they were great. They would just bring me the good ones. I'm like, guys, I'm not stupid, And so they would bring me the bad ones. I'm like, okay, now I am stupid. I don't want to see anything. Just don't bring it to me anymore. And so they stopped. But I have a huge, you can't see it in this shot, but I have a big chest of memories of People's Court. And among them will be emails that I've received from either litigants or viewers that, kind of touch my soul. And that one day my grandkids, who I may not live to see at the pace my daughters are going, might read about their grandmother and say, "Wow, this was a really cool job. This was really, something. She touched people, So I just recently got one. I couldn't believe this when I sent it to my kids. It was a fellow who was a big fan when he was a teenager, and he came to the show, and I met with him afterwards because he wanted to go to law school, and I met with him. He not only went to law school, he went to Yale. He went to Yale. like a certain somebody, and he clerked for some appellate judge, and he's going to clerk for the Supreme Court now. And during his interview with the justice who he's going to work with, it came up that he watched People's Court growing up, and that was it. I'm like, that really came up in the middle of a Supreme Court justice interview, and it was the sweetest thing. He goes, I haven't touched base with you in 8 years, but I wanted you to know where my life went. And I said, this is awesome. This happened. Yes, this happens.
It's the same kid. It's the same guy.
Oh, we got to compare notes.
I know this kid.
Oh my gosh.
I don't want to say his name. He went to Yale, and he was watching me all the time on Hot Bench and then on Tribunal. And then he actually organized something for me to come back to Yale and speak. And he's at Oxford. He wrote a book. And then he's clerking on. Yes, it's the same kid. Oh my gosh.
Did he just tell every TV judge that there is
and so he literally just wrote me. I don't want to mention his name, but he's clerking on the Supreme Court. And he was like, I just want you to know.
I'm going to find his email and tell him I know you're two-timing me. We figured it out on Tanya's podcast.
We are totally, this is absolutely the same kid. This is absolutely the same kid. We should both take him out. We should take him out. We should prank him. We should show up in DC.
We should show up in
DC together and be like, oh, hey, I should be like, do you want to have coffee? And then we should take him out and then put that
right. And then I'll tell him, hey, I'm in town. Do you want to have coffee? And then see how he squirms, It's like catching a two-timer.
Your life, funny. Your path has been, it sort of seems very golden hewn. You've succeeded at so much. You've done well at so many things. But, just like we talked about how, there's a moment, because really part of what inspired me to do this podcast and to talk about things that are battle tested is because I think that our values, I think that they're all being tested very acutely right now. Not saying they've never been tested before. I think right now the test is very acute. But I also think equally important is to sort of think about and to share with people the battles that have tested us personally. Is there, can you share with us a moment where, you couldn't get to sleep at night because something was challenging, where you just really felt torn up inside because of something you were dealing with or someone you were dealing with? Tell us about your battles, Marilyn, your battle. Just pick one.
Okay. I've had 3 siblings pass away. Most recently, my half-sister passed away of pancreatic cancer within a month. And my 2 other brothers, who were older than I was, because both my parents are married 60 years, but they were both married previously. And those 2 brothers also passed away of cancer. And I think it's very hard to watch your parents bury their children. It's a very difficult thing because it's not supposed to happen. But that's where family comes in, where we're built as people to be resilient and to, band together and kind of move forward. You think that the world is going to stop and you feel like the world is going to stop. The world isn't going to stop. For better or for worse, it's going to keep going, and you continue to move on. And I think this happens to everybody. The older you get and you start to lose people. When my parents passed away, there was nothing to lament. They had a beautiful, wonderful, my father died at 92. My mother died at 98. You can't, you cry because you miss them, but you can't cry. That's a wonderful life. When someone is robbed of the rest of it, that's a very painful thing to go through, and to kind of attempt to keep faith and keep going. And I think that's the thing that's probably tested me the most.
So I had no idea you were going to say that. I didn't know that would be the thing that you would bring up. I just lost a brother over the holidays.
Oh, honey, I didn't even know this.
Yeah. And I had another brother. So like you, both my parents were married before, and I had two brothers and a sister from my first marriage, my mom's first marriage, a sister from my dad's first marriage. And my father really raised the two boys with me because they were relatively closer in age. One was 10 years older, one was 14 years older. And my freshman year in college, I lost my brother, my oldest brother. And then just more recently, I lost my younger brother, even though they were both older. And what you said, Marilyn, it is the hardest thing. Like, it's watching my parents. Like, my grief is one thing, but no parent, nobody who birthed two babies should see those babies die. And I think that there's something about it being out of order. Like, there's it's not in the nature of things. We're supposed to lose our parents, but our parents are not supposed to lose us. And then if you're children, one of the survivors, having to. So how did you help your parents? And now I'm asking for me. Like, I want to be the best daughter I can. I have my own grief, but I feel like it's almost secondary to kind of being there for my parents. Like, how did you best support them? Like,
you just said it, being there. It's being there. And sometimes you're not able to be there physically if you're not in the same state. If you're not, we've always lived about 15, 20 minutes away. And so I just spent a lot more time there because I knew that even if they didn't, they knew I was busy, and even if they didn't ask me to, I knew that's kind of what you need to get. I hate the word past it because you're never past it, but to get through it, to get through the worst of it. So I just showed up more than I possibly would have, if not, I guess, show up more.
Yes, we're friends and I know you, but I also, my team put together some research on you. And I didn't know this about your brothers, by the way. Wow, that's crazy. I didn't know this, but I read that, before your mom passed away, you played Chinese checkers with her every day. Like, you did that all of the time.
All the time to keep her sharp. Fresh. She was good too until about 96.
So my mother is 88 and she doesn't live that far away. My parents don't live very far away. Today, we're recording this on a Tuesday. Sunday night, she was over with my dad and me and one of my nieces. And she was teaching me, my 88-year-old mother, how to play bid whist, because I played spades, I played poker. But she's like, you got to learn how to play bid whist.
You have to learn. Listen, that is, in terms of the latest years of your beloved parents, you have to learn whatever it is they play. And we would play dominoes all the time. We would have a family luncheon at my mother's house. And I mean, she obviously didn't cook. We had someone else cook, but everybody would come over, and then people would know not to schedule things on Thursday afternoon because we'd probably stay there playing dominoes for a couple of hours because we were like, well, how much longer can this last? And it went on for a very long, gorgeous time. But that's very important when you're caring for elders, that you figure out the things that they do that can mentally stimulate them, and you help them engage in it and continue to engage in it on a regular basis.
By the way, they're so excited that I'm talking to you. And when they hear that, they'll be like, she's not caring for us. We're caring for my mom. So she has a poker group. My mother has a poker group at her senior center. And I went to go play poker with them. Girl, I could not hang.
Like, they were probably vicious. Trash
talking. They are vicious and trash talking. And
I love it.
Yeah, it was. So that's, that's a real blessing, because I didn't expect you to say that. And I didn't know what your battle was. When you, how did you process your own grief with your brothers? I think that grief is something that, like you said, it never goes away. I saw a movie a long time ago, and I think it was Torch Song Trilogy, and one of the characters lost someone, and they said, when someone dies, it's like a wedding ring. So when you first get married, you're always staring at the ring. And then you're married, down the road, 10 years, you don't look at the ring every day, but then sometimes you're like, wow, look at my ring. And that's really how I see
really
grief.
is.
You know,
It
it's
is.
in waves.
That's how it is. And it kind of makes me sad. But one of the things that I learned being a prosecutor, you always feel like if anything happens to anybody in my family, I will take revenge. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to calmly, you'll watch the victims of a crime calmly walk into the courtroom and you'll say, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't be able to be. And then I remember once a friend of mine who's a defense attorney who said to me, yeah, you do. You just keep on keeping on is what happens, you know, just one day after another, until the acute pain is more subdued. And because life just keeps coming. It's Lucy in the candy factory with the candy on the conveyor belt. It's not going to stop. So eventually you have to keep coping for everybody else who still is here. You know, you have no choice, you know.
What do you do? What's your go-to when you feel sad? Like if you're feeling really sad or down, what's
red
your
wine,
go-to?
chocolate, and coffee, all of which the doctor just told me I had to stop. I'm like, hell no,
What?
you know, that's not going to happen. Yeah. I'm like, my stomach doesn't feel as good as it used to. Well, you know, maybe you should stay away from milk and cheese. I'm like, we're done. You know,
it's like, does that mean the next time we get together, we have to have herbal tea?
Are we having like I said, I cut him off and just walked, you know, basically, I'm like, I'll be doing that.
Girl, like, I don't know, because we're not like herbal tea, kale salad.
No,
kind of
that
folks.
won't be happening.
That's not how we roll. That's not how we roll.
You know what? Girlfriends. You know what I think is really important for women? Girlfriends.
Amen.
And I mean, I really think that it's what makes you feel you, as opposed to a wife, a mother, a daughter, all the other roles, you know, a judge, all the roles you have to play in your life. When you're with your girlfriends, you're just you. And they, especially if you have good girlfriends, but seriously, any girlfriends will do, but good girlfriends that have known you for a long time and have not left. You know, they know all your terrible faults and they still want to have a glass of wine with you and break bread with you. There's nothing like that. And
nothing like it.
We end up getting so busy in our lives that we don't carve out. I did that when my kids were younger and I was crazy. I didn't carve out enough time for that. And that's one thing I would tell any young mother and any old mother, you know, that is anybody. You have to have a sense of your own identity separate from all the labels that you bear every day. And I think girlfriends are the one place where I feel that, where I don't feel any responsibility other than to have fun. So I try to schedule. I am the scheduler of happy hours. I am the one. And I've tried to teach my children this because they'll say, well, I haven't seen anybody in 2 months. I'm like, that's on you. You're the scheduler. I pass the baton and you're the scheduler, you know? And in fact, my eldest child will come. She said she's going to write a country Western song. All my friends are 60s because she comes to the happy hours of my group of friends. And she goes, well, it's already planned. I'm just going to come. I'm like, no, plan your own, you know?
Well, she can come to ours for just the first part. Yeah. She can come for part one, then she has to go home and be with her own friends so we can have our time. Girl, I'm just going to say this. You're not just a friend, you're someone who I've looked up to in this business. You have comported your television courtroom, not just in a way where you own the camera and you're funny and you're smart, but you really do it with integrity and grace and elegance. And it's the same integrity, grace, and elegance that you demonstrate in real life. You are the real deal. You are what you see. People, what you see is what she is. And I am so honored and proud and truly blessed to call you a friend, and super honored.
And this is why you need girlfriends, people.
Judge Marilyn Milian, Justice for the People with Judge Marilyn. You can see her. You can also still see you on the People's Court. Yeah. They're all over. Yeah. They're all over.
They're still playing. We're head to head in some towns. You know?
Right. So, you know, Marilyn is here. Marilyn is here to stay. And Judge Milian, there's so many people who look up to you and admire you. I'm certainly one of them. And thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you.